Shalom Aleichem. Moshe Langado speaking under the auspices of Kollel Avat Yisrael in San Diego, California, and Sha'rei Tziyon in Brooklyn, New York. This week we will be reading Parshat TISA. TISA has, in truth, a very difficult episode in the Jewish people's lives. We will be reading the story of the Egel HaZahav, the golden calf. And when we ponder the history of the Exodus, we're bewildered. Bnei Israel, after suffering bondage in the land of Egypt, finally the redemption is near. God Almighty brings upon the Egyptians 10 plagues, 10 miraculous plagues, blood and frogs and vermin, boils. And finally, after 10 plagues, the Jewish people leave Egypt in a most miraculous way. They walk out of this empire, and 6 days later, the Egyptians change their mind and start to chase them. Bnei Israel sees the cavalry in back of them, and in front, the raging waters of the Red Sea. What are they to do? Petrified, Moses tells them, travel, continue. And they travel into the sea. And the sea opens up. And they walk on dry land. And as they exit the sea returns and falls upon the Egyptian cavalry, destroying it completely. The enemy is vanquished, and Israel sings, Az Yashir Moshe. But that's not the end of the miraculous journey. They walk a little more, and then a warring tribe called Amalek comes and attacks them. Bnei Israel has never warred, has no military knowledge. And Moses, picks his student, Yoshua, to lead the battle. Maybe a Talmid Chacham, but no general. And they vanquish, and they defeat Amalek. But they're still in the desert. And they still have food, and they have water. Wonders from God Almighty. On Rosh Chodesh, Sivan, they reach the Mount Sinai. And they prepare themselves for the greatest revelation. A revelation which God Almighty would speak to a nation, something which has never occurred in the history of man. And they are told that there is one God and don't have any other gods. And 40 days later, Moshe disappears and they don't know where he is. And they build a golden calf to worship. How do we understand it? After all they've gone through. And maybe the answer is quite simple. That when somebody is addicted to the most disgusting form of addiction, it's hard for him to break it. Bnei Israel were in Mitzrayim, and they saw paganism, and some fell into the traps of paganism. And now it was time to break that addiction. It was quite hard. We have it in our own society, our own community, sometimes in our own family, sometimes ourselves. We've become addicted to a certain way of life. And no matter how horrible, how vile it is, we can't break out of it. And I'm not only talking about alcohol and drugs and gambling. You know, I used to think gambling was a different type of addiction. But I found out that it really isn't. I thought drinking and drugs, putting in chemicals into your body, for some reason forced you into some sort of addiction. But then when I heard that one of the most difficult addictions to break is gambling, I saw that it's self-inflicted. How many people have lost their families, lost their businesses, lost their own self-esteem because of gambling? And they've gone into rehabilitation and they're cured seemingly. And a short time later, they're back gambling their life again and falling to the same hole and the same pit of depravity. My friends, when we become addicted to such horrible, horrible traits, it's hard to break out of it. When a person starts speaking Lashon Hara, it's hard for him to break out of it. When a person becomes addicted to anger, it's hard for him to leave it. My friends, let us read the Parsha with open eyes. Let us internalize the lesson of the Egel HaZahav. How hard it is to break an addiction once we have it. Let us save ourselves and our children from the horrible process of finding oneself a slave to tobacco, a slave to alcohol, a slave to gambling, a slave to Lashon Hara, a slave to anger, a slave to technology. I hope everybody knows what I mean. And then we'll truly be free and we'll be zocher to walk together and realize the true Geulah. Shabbat Shalom.